Welcome back. You know, prepping for that board meeting today, it really got me thinking.
Mm,
We spend so much time, strategizing for our companies,
right?
but what about like a strategic plan for
Yeah.
ourselves? So that's what has me so fired up about today's deep dive on resilience, especially with your, demanding schedule that you mentioned in your notes.
It's funny how we often just kind of overlook that element of like the strategic thinking applied to well-being.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't launch a product without a plan, but we often navigate,
Yeah.
all the complexities of work life without a personal roadmap.
Totally. And that's where Marie-Hélène Pelletier's book, The Resilience Plan, comes in.
Okay.
And it's not just another, self-help book. It's a framework for building sustainable performance
Right?
and mental well-being. And that's kind of what we try to do here, right?
Yeah.
We distill the best bits so you can actually put them into action.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most insightful things that I took away from this book was our brains are not really wired for these demands, of modern work life.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like running a marathon at a sprinter's pace.
Yeah.
Eventually, something has to give.
And you can't ignore it.
Right.
Like Pelletier compares it to ignoring burnout
Mm-hmm.
to like a flashing warning light on your car's dashboard.
Yeah,
Sure, you can keep driving, but you're kind of asking for trouble.
exactly. And the costs of ignoring burnout really do go beyond just professional setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
It impacts your health, your relationships,
Oh, yeah.
even your ability to enjoy life.
Yeah.
That depression is a leading cause of disability claims.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that our mental well-being is not a luxury. It's really essential
It is. It's so important.
for success in all areas of life.
And it's not, I think, a matter of if we will encounter stress, but when.
Right.
And so that's where this book really offers some strategies for not just surviving, but thriving.
Okay.
But before we even get there, how do we even know if we're headed for trouble?
Yeah.
What are the warning signs of burnout?
Well, burnout kind of manifests in a couple of key ways. Exhaustion.
Okay.
So feeling physically and emotionally drained.
Mm-hmm.
Cynicism,
Okay.
becoming negative and disengaged. And then, of course, decreased performance. So really struggling to keep up with your usual workload.
Yeah, that definitely rings a bell, especially, as we head into this very busy season.
Right.
You had mentioned, feeling constantly swamped in your notes.
I know. Tell me about it.
So let's talk about how we can actually change that and build a more resilient,
It's funny.
yeah.
We upgrade our devices. We optimize our calendars.
Right.
We rarely apply that same strategic thinking to our mental toolkit.
Totally.
And that's where Pelletier brings in this idea of using cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT,
Okay.
as a core resilience strategy.
Okay. And I know for some people, therapy is kind of intense.
Yeah.
This isn't about needing a couch session, right?
Yeah. No, not at all.
Oh.
It's about understanding that our thoughts directly impact,
Mm-hmm.
how we feel and how we behave.
Yeah.
And the good news is we can train our brains for the better.
Right.
Just like we train our bodies at the gym.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
So we're basically like rewiring those negative thought patterns that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The ones that send us spiraling.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Pelletier lays out a super helpful acronym to spot these unhelpful thinking patterns in action. BEAR.
Ooh, I love a good acronym.
Okay.
Breaks it down.
It does.
What does BEAR stand for?
So B is for black and white thinking.
Okay.
It's that all or nothing mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if one presentation doesn't go perfectly,
Right.
the whole project is doomed.
Oh, yeah.
We miss all those nuances.
I know that one well.
Yeah.
Especially with high stakes projects.
Totally.
It's so easy to catastrophize.
It is. And then we have E for emotional reasoning.
Okay.
So this is letting your feelings basically dictate reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel overwhelmed, therefore I am incapable.
Right.
But it's about separating that feeling from the fact that it's temporary.
That's a tough one.
It is.
Especially when you're in
Right.
emotions feel very real.
They are real,
Yeah.
but they're not always reliable narrators.
Okay.
Okay, A is for anchoring.
Okay.
So this is about getting stuck in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, in your notes that you used to be able to handle these huge workloads with ease.
Right.
But anchoring might make it hard to accept that. That's changed.
Oh, wow.
And that's okay.
You just hit the nail on the head. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I've been going through.
Yeah, we all do it.
Okay.
And lastly, we have R for reading minds.
Okay.
This is assuming we know what others are thinking,
Right.
usually negatively.
Yeah.
Let's say a colleague seems quiet in a meeting,
Right.
you just instantly assume they hate your idea.
Yes, been there.
But it turns out they were just having a busy morning.
Totally. My mind's already gone to a whole other place.
Right. It's so common, especially in those high-pressure environments.
Yeah.
But by recognizing these bear traps,
Yeah.
we can actually start to challenge and reframe those thoughts.
That makes sense, but how do we actually do that?
Right.
Like, what are the tools? Because it's one thing to identify it, but, like, how do we actually shift it?
Well, it's like building any new habit.
Okay.
It takes practice.
Right.
Pelletier talks about this idea of thought challenging,
Okay.
which is basically putting your thoughts on trial.
Interesting.
So instead of blindly accepting every negative thought,
Right.
you're going to cross-examine it.
Okay.
What's the evidence for this thought?
Okay.
Is there another way to interpret this situation?
Right.
What would I say to a friend who's thinking this way?
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah, I would never.
We'd never let a friend get away with that.
Exactly.
So it's about bringing that same compassion and objectivity to our own thought patterns.
I love that.
Yeah. And when we do that, we build a more, resilient and empowered mindset.
It makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we're challenging these thought gremlins, but resilience isn't just about our minds, right? Like, I'm looking at my notes and you mentioned feeling pulled in a million different directions.
Right.
And then self-care feels impossible.
Absolutely. And that's where I think this idea of Pelletier's of a strategic resilience plan
Okay.
really clickify.
Yeah.
You're already in the habit of strategizing in your work.
Right.
So it's kind of taking that same skill set and applying it to your well-being.
Okay, so less about like the vague self-care and more about an actual plan.
Exactly. Think of it this way.
Okay.
Your energy is a bank account.
Okay.
Demands, like that big meeting that you had today, those are withdrawals.
Right.
Self-care is making deposits.
Okay.
And Pelletier argues that, most high achievers are running chronically overdrawn.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little on the nose right now.
A little too real.
Yeah, so how do we take this banking analogy
Yes.
and make it an actual plan?
So it starts with identifying what are your sources of supply?
Okay.
What energizes you? Even in small doses. Is it, a walk in nature? Is it 10 minutes of reading? Is it catching up with a friend?
Yeah, what's our energy drink?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I think just as important is understanding your demands. And not just work stuff, but emotionally draining tasks.
Right.
Relationships that take more than they give.
Yeah.
You mentioned, family commitments kind of piling up lately.
Yeah, it's so easy to say yes to everything and then just be completely resentful.
Exactly. And I think that's where this plan is so powerful. It's like, once you can actually see it and analyze, like, okay, these are all my supplies, these are all my demands.
Right.
Then you can start making those conscious choices about how you're spending your energy.
Instead of just like constantly being like depleted.
Right.
It's like giving ourselves permission to actually prioritize it, not just, if there's time left over. Okay, so that all makes sense in theory, but how do we actually do it?
Right.
Because like, it's one thing to know it.
Yeah.
It's another thing to actually put it into practice.
Well, Pelletier really emphasizes starting small.
Okay.
Don't try to overhaul your entire life, overnight.
Right.
Pick one tiny change this week.
Okay.
Maybe it's a 5-minute walk at lunch. Maybe it's saying no to one obligation.
Okay.
It's about building that momentum.
Okay.
It's not about aiming for perfection.
Small wins, big impact.
Exactly.
Like it. What else? What other like nuggets of wisdom?
Okay, I've got 2 things.
Okay.
1, communication is key.
Okay.
Share your plan with somebody you trust, a friend, a colleague, a mentor.
Like a resilience buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They can offer you support. They can hold you accountable.
I like it.
And then second, build in reminders.
Okay.
Pelletier calls this priming.
Okay.
Maybe it's a sticky note on your laptop with your supply list.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a recurring calendar reminder just to check in with yourself.
So you're creating a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
Okay.
Building resilience really is a journey. It's not a destination.
Right.
It takes that conscious effort, but the payoff is huge.
Yeah.
A more fulfilling and sustainable way of working and living.
This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been great to dive in.
I feel like we went from like the science of burnout to actually like
Totally.
how to make a plan.
Yes.
Using the Resilience Plan by Marie-Hélène Pelletier.
Such a good book.
Really changed how I think about things.
Me too. And Remember, even those small changes make a
Yes.
big difference over time.
They do. So for our listeners out there, here's a final thought. What's one thing you can do this week to
Yes.
boost your resilience?
Love that.
Write it down.
Yes.
Share it with a friend.
Accountability.
Let's make it happen. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.